Esquire, and this is my very first Relic Knights piece of content, so I hope that you enjoy it. I basically put together a bunch of rule changes for the 1.5 rule set. We'll be playing this in Gen Con 2017, so if you're out there, make sure you stop by and say hello for that. I'll be running that tournament. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move through this rule set, so some of the important changes that we're seeing here. So first things we're going to go over is just the overview. We're going to be talking about Held Esper, the placeholder card, guards, and redirect, and then some differences with the victory conditions. Again, all these things have actually changed, so we're going to see some of that stuff. So very first off, we've got Held Esper stored on cards now generates only one of any Esper instead of two. So now this is kind of a big deal for some of the champions and some of the minion type troops that are out there, and some of the Relic Knights and Questing Knights and that sort of thing, because it used to be on some of them they had two Esper abilities that you could store Esper one turn by passing your turn and reformatting your hand, drawing those 5 cards, taking those 10 cards and then going back down to 5. And it didn't feel too bad, but the problem is that the cards have not been rebalanced to this new system. So this actually, I think, might have been one of the most detrimental things for the new 1.5 rules. Of course, things are changing very soon. We've got the 2.0 rules coming out soon. We're not going to go into that in this video, but needless to say, the 2.0 rules are going to change the face of the game in a lot of ways, but they're still going to be the same sort of card-based game. So see the next change. We've got the placeholder card. So this is very new. So we've got a placeholder card, which you can see on your right side there. It says if it's in the active slot, you basically have 3 different options. So this is as if it was a character moving into the active slot, and then you can do one of those 3 things. So you can move any friendly model up to 3 inches. You can heal 2 damage from a friendly unit, or you can use an Esper type initiate action from a friendly unit's affinity. So if you're playing the Star Nebula Corsairs or something like that, then you can use the Chaos action. You'll place a placeholder card in your queue when you either use a linked card or are unable to fill your queue. Why is this in the game right now? So under the old rules, let's say you had a queue of 3 and you had only 2 troops that were left in the game. Well, your queue was virtually 2, which was what they touted as a catch-up mechanic under the old game system. The problem is that it became probably a little bit too powerful, and so they now have these placeholder cards. You could have up to 4 of these in a game if you had a large enough game. So they do give you 4 of them in the sheet when you download the 1.5 rules. So print them off, get your nice color placeholder cards. But the thing is, to me, it was like, you don't just get faster because people are dying around you. If anything, you probably get more afraid than anything else. So I think that is a good fix, a good step in the right direction, even though it got rid of that catch-up mechanic that they used to have. Again, move a friendly unit up to 3 inches, heal 2 damage, or use an Esper type initiate action from any friendly unit's affinity. Just so you're aware, I know a lot of people don't know exactly where those initiate actions are. They're in the back of the book. There's a chart of all those things. Those are, I think, one of the most forgotten parts of the game, and I've actually talked to Dave about that quite a bit, and I said to him specifically that I felt like those were something that a lot of people either don't know about or don't use, and so honestly we could probably get rid of them and the game would not be that impacted. But if you disagree with me, I'd like to know about that. Next thing, we've got guard and redirect. So guard and redirect now reduce damage by half, round up. So they used to nullify damage, and then with the redirect, you actually used to be able to redirect all of that damage to your opponent. You round it up, so if it was 13 damage, you're going to take 7 of that damage, which feels a little bit bad. It would have been nice if it was round down. I think it wouldn't have been too bad if it was round down, but they decided to go with round up. They do not utilize armor when they're used, so if you have any type of cover, you don't get the cover armor, and if you have armor on your card, then you don't get any of that. And they do cancel out any after action effects like forced movement or maybe a pull action or anything else that is tied to that attack. They cancel out. So there are different reasons to use them, but I think people are going to be guarding and redirecting a lot less than they used to. The redirect may be a little bit better because you can actually dish out some of that damage to another model. With the redirect, let's see, I believe changes on the next slide. Yeah, the redirect deals 1/2 of the damage to the original target, round up again, and then the remaining damage to the redirect target in line of sight of that original target. Here you can see my Isabeau using her redirect survival of the fittest in a recent game, which I'll be posting later. Okay, victory conditions. So this is probably the largest chunk of change as far as the different things that have been made. I think there's really only one of these that's not the best, but most of them, it's been a change for the better. So the first one's, and then we're only going to go over the changes. So the first one is the conservation, which says to accomplish the conservation, you must retrieve 1 conservation token from 2 different enemy objectives and then deposit both of them on your primary objective. So this went from 2 down to 2 from 3. So this used to be you had to retrieve 3 conservation tokens and place them on 2 different enemy objectives, or was the primary objective or something like that. So this is definitely going to speed up the game. You're going to see that as a theme with a lot of these. A lot of these, it's like you're still doing the same thing virtually, but it's going to speed up the game in such a way that you aren't going to have as many turns where you're just kind of like doing objective stuff. You'll actually be able to dish out some damage, which certain factions maybe favor a little bit more than others. But then again, you've got factions like Series Speed Circuit that are just really good at accomplishing things really, really quickly, so it helps them out too. Next, we've got Secure Perimeter. To accomplish Secure Perimeter, you must place 1 secure token on your primary objective and 3 different enemy objectives. So this one may be a little bit, there's a lot going on, but you don't have to move things around the board, so that's less chance of, you don't have to worry about your opponent dealing damage to one of your guys and then forcing them to drop an objective counter. So this one's maybe a little bit easier that way. You no longer have to have all the secure tokens on all the objectives at once to complete. And I made sure to read this because that's a difference. That sentence is completely missing from the new Secure Perimeter victory condition, because under the old rules you used to be able to, and you can still do this, you can still get rid of your opponent's objective tokens, and so that would get really frustrating because it's like I'll place an objective token, then my opponent's like I'll take one off, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'll place another one, and then they'll take them off. I mean, obviously games aren't going to go like that. Like eventually someone's going to get angry and shoot the other person in the face, but it just, I think that's good because you've completed the action. Even if they get rid of the token, you don't have to worry about that, and that can again speed up the game and move things along, which is really, really important. Next, we've got the Grand Conjunction. To accomplish Grand Conjunction, you must place 1 infused token on an enemy's primary objective and 2 infused tokens on your own primary objective. The objectives must all possess the infused tokens at the same time. So this is one of the very few ones where it says they all have to have the infused tokens at the same time. Tokens are down to 3 in both cases. So this used to say you must place 3 infused tokens and then 3 on your own primary objective, and they all had to be active at the same time. So this used to be a really arduous one, like one that was really difficult to do. This is much more reasonable because you can basically get over to your enemy's primary objective, place those 2 infused tokens, and then just have one of your buddies, one of your other units hanging around, and place that other infused token somewhere else. So basically you have 2 on your primary objective, and which you could do right away at the beginning of the game, and then 1 at the other one, and then just defend that infused token at your primary objective, which if you have those infused tokens, you're getting Esper every turn, so that's a lot, and so maybe some of the other characters are probably not going to want to challenge you at that location. Next, we've got all the no changes. So basically, Espionage had no change, Tear It Down had no change, and Heist had no change at all. Now, there was maybe possibly some word changes, but it's virtually no change, or maybe some clarifications. There's really no changes with those, so you'll see that with some of these if you do look them up yourself. Moving on to some secondary victory conditions, we've got Siege. To accomplish Siege, you must place a secure token on all 3 of your objectives before you activate only 1 unit for the 2nd time during the game. This used to be before your opponent could draw through their deck, so that was maybe a little bit more lenient than what it is now. This one, I would say, is one of my least favorite ones because it's basically round 3 and your opponent has 3 points for their secondary victory condition just right off the bat for doing almost nothing except for spreading out their forces. I would say that if your opponent has Siege, maybe you could take advantage of them spreading their forces out by putting the lump sum of your forces in one place to eliminate one of their units right away. Try to maybe counterplay them maybe that way, because if they do have to place another unit in the queue and they aren't able to do this, then that could be problematic for them. So I guess that's one way to stop this. I haven't actually tried to stop this, so maybe if you are able to stop this, I mean, I guess it's an all win or all fail sort of thing, so maybe it's balanced in that way. But this one I think could use maybe a little bit of work to fix it, because, you know, I think that it's good that the games are moving faster, but I don't think that scoring 3 victory points on turn 3 or round 3 is really what Relic Knights should be doing or want to do. So, I mean, we still have to work on this one, but I know I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, let me know if you think otherwise. Secondary victory conditions: Carnage, or maybe Carnage. No, it's Carnage. That's a Spider-Man hero. To accomplish Carnage, you must either destroy 2 enemy units or deal a total of 25 damage to enemy units. Damage to objectives doesn't count towards that, even though those are technically part of your opponent's cadre. Added the 25 damage threshold to the objective stipulations. That's the only thing that really changed here. And I could see that. Maybe your opponent's playing with a lot of troops, and so it really gets hard to destroy like whole, you know, a certain amount of enemy units or whatever, because they can just soak up so much damage. And so dealing 25 total damage to enemy units, that's kind of important here. Now, one thing that is a stipulation, which I guess might be a sticking point for some people, is it says 25 total damage, deal the 25 damage. So does that count the damage before or after armor? I would say that it counts after the armor, because you aren't actually dealing the damage unless it's, you know, actually on the card. You know, so I would say after armor is applied, then that's when the damage would count. That's the way I would rule that. Again, if you would disagree with that on some sort of basis, I'd like to know. Next, we've got the realign. This says to accomplish realign, you must place at least 1 infused token on 2 different enemy objectives. Objectives down to 2 from 3, and objectives no longer need to have tokens at the same time. So again, we're seeing this as a common theme with a lot of these. The only one that we've seen that we only saw one objective that needed to have the tokens all there at the same time, but they basically removed this stipulation from here. And they also made it a lot easier going down to 2 from 3. So it's pretty much the same thing we said before about other objectives that had to infuse or place tokens on things. It applies here as well. Next, we've got all the secondary conditions with no change, and that's defensive life. That one basically had no change. There you go. You can see some of my new cards I printed out for myself there. Reminder cards. I do like the new reminder cards. I think they're a lot sleeker. Like, it used to be spread out over so many different cards, and it fits a lot better on these new cards. So definitely print them out. Go and download the 1.5 rules. Go look in the comments, and I'll post a link down there in the comments. Next, we've got the Void Calamity. So this one and the other prismatic condition, the Wild Crystal Harvest, these have a lot, they're very multifunctional. There's a lot of stuff going on with these, so you have to kind of bear with me. So it says, when a unit is in contact with any enemy objective, it may use its action and spend 1 held Esper to retrieve a Calamity token. So that's a lot of things that have to line up, right? You have to have a held Esper, you have to touch an enemy objective, and then you get to retrieve a Calamity token. Okay, good. A unit that starts its activation within 3 inches of a unit with a Calamity token loses 1 held Esper. So you no longer used to have to place these on your opponent. Now you just move around them and just cause havoc, and just are frustrating for your opponent to deal with. This doesn't affect the unit with the Calamity token. So with a Black Diamond faction, this can be very problematic because they just have a lot of armor. So Void Calamity is kind of right up their alley, because they can just cause havoc, throw an armor unit, and then maybe just throw it in its idle pile, like the really big one. So if you had the Diamondback with this thing, then you could basically just sit there in the idle queue and just cause havoc, because it's 3 inches from him, and you can't hold Esper around that guy anymore, and he just sits there and absorbs damage. It says a unit may deposit a Calamity token on any enemy model. The model loses all held Esper. Remove the Calamity token from play. To accomplish Calamity, you have to either deposit a Calamity token on an enemy model or at any board edge. After you accomplish Calamity, you can't retrieve any more Calamity tokens, so you can't do it again. So basically, you can carry the thing around, but once you place it on an enemy unit, then they just lose all their Esper and you complete it, and you get your 2 victory points. So some of the changes with Void Calamity: a unit carrying a Calamity token may not voluntarily drop it, and may not gain or use held Esper. To accomplish, you must place 3 Calamity tokens on enemy models. That's what it used to say. You can now voluntarily just drop them. So that's what that really says. I looked that one up, and you can drop any token as long as it allows you to, and now you can do that. And it used to be you had to place 3 Calamity tokens on any model. So again, this is just showing us the game's going to be a lot faster. You'll be able to do objectives a lot more quickly, and it should be a lot faster overall. Next, we've got the Crystal Harvest. Unit contact with a friendly objective may use its activation and spend 1 held Esper to retrieve a crystal token. A unit carrying a crystal token may spend 1 Esper of any type when performing an action. The Esper may only be used to initiate an action and not be used to pay for presses. One last thing I just wanted to mention with the last one, with the Void Calamity. It used to be as soon as you completed it, it was not in play anymore, and now it's in play indefinitely until both players complete it. And that's how both of these are: the Wild Crystal Harvest and the Void Calamity. They're both the same like that. The other thing on the Crystal Harvest is to accomplish Crystal Harvest, you must deposit 2 crystal tokens at any board edge. Once you have accomplished Crystal Harvest, you can't retrieve more crystal tokens. So the crystal tokens themselves are nice because they're going to generate held Esper for you, so you might just keep them for a while and then eventually drop them off somewhere. But the thing is, if your opponent does damage to you, then you're going to drop them and then they could pick them up, and now they're getting held Esper, and so maybe it's better to just try to complete the objective. But the held Esper is really a nice aspect to that. And of course, you're going to have a lot more damage output in those types of games. So again, here's some of the changes with the Crystal Harvest. When a crystal token is dropped, it is destroyed and moved away. Okay, I forgot about that. That was the old rules. Under the new rules, you can drop them and it doesn't go anywhere. You can actually drop them and pick them back up. To accomplish Crystal Harvest, you must destroy 3 crystal tokens, either by one of your units voluntarily dropping them or causing enemy units to drop them. So basically, that's kind of a bad game space, game dev type thing, really. It's like, okay, so you want me to pick these things up and then drop them on the ground and I get 2 points for that? That doesn't make a lot of sense, but okay, if that's what you want me to do, I guess that's what I'll do. After the Crystal Harvest has been accomplished, no additional crystal tokens may be created. So that's again under the old rules. That's how it was. Under the new rules, you can keep creating crystal tokens even after that. So just keep that in mind. You just can't retrieve anymore after it is that you complete it. That's the really new rule. Okay, so let's go to the next faction victory conditions. So a lot of these did change as well. So we've got lap time. This is for the series speed circuit. To accomplish lap time, you must retrieve a flag token from your opponent's primary objective and deposit it at the board edge furthest away from your opponent's primary objective. This used to be complete a non-destruction condition before a player's Esper deck was drawn through the first time, and that sounds good in theory until it is that you don't have any non-destruction objectives because you just didn't draw them, so that could be problematic, right? So I think that this one's a lot better for the series speed circuit. It's very much in the flavor of them. It's kind of like capture the flag, like they're going to run over to the opponent's primary objective and then just kind of like wave at them and then run back to the furthest board edge. This also allows your opponent to do some tactical stuff with their primary objective where they can place it up against the board edge and make it a little bit further away than it normally would be. Of course, you have the Black Diamonds that kind of want to keep theirs more centralized, or closer to a board edge, because they have a faction condition that's similar to that. So we've got the Shattered Sword Justice faction condition, which says before deployment, choose a unit in your opponent's cadre. This unit is now the accused. To accomplish justice, you must destroy the accused unit. So this is before deployment. So that's really, really important, right? Because you choose it before deployment, and now your opponent they can hide that unit away maybe a little bit, or kind of be a little bit more careful with it. The old rules used to have to wait as the Shattered Sword for your opponent to actually kill one of your enemy units, one of your units, and then that guy that killed, the first guy that killed one of your guys, then they became accused and you had to kill them back. So it was kind of like retribution, I guess. But that's a lot of things to keep track of and other stuff. It's just a lot easier to just maybe get a token out of your bag, maybe one of your 9 or 8 tokens, because you only have 2 of those anyways, and then just mark it down as justice, and then just place it on one of your opponent's things. And that way you just, you know, if he dies, then you can remember, and it's a lot easier to keep track of. Next, we've got the No Empire with Slave Raid. Whenever you deal damage to an enemy unit, place the slave token in contact with the damage unit's base. To accomplish slave raid, you must retrieve at least 1 slave token and deposit it at your primary objective. This changed from destroy the unit to just deal damage to the unit, which of course again is a lot easier. Just like, okay, just deal some damage and then you get the token, and now you get to place it on your primary objective. This one is Attune. To accomplish Attune, you must place Infused token on the enemy's primary objective. Used to be 2 secondary objectives and 1 of your own primary objectives, so that's a lot easier, right? So this is for the Doctrine, I believe. Place infused token on the enemy's primary objective. Basically run over there and just place a token on their thing. And that's basically it. It's almost like the Series Speed Circuits one, but they have to run over and then tag your it and then run back. So this might be one of the more easy ones, but it's kind of, it seems like it's against what the Doctrine typically does, which is just stand back pretty far back and just blast things. So maybe that it's balanced in that way because, you know, the Doctrine are just not really fast movers. They're more, you know, stay back, and this allows your opponent maybe to protect that primary objective a little bit more and maybe funnel your guys a little bit more. Next we've got Transport, which I believe is the Black Diamond, and then Booty Raid, which is your Corsairs, your Star Nebula Corsairs. No changes on those. Again, with the Transport and the Black Diamonds, that's where you kind of want to place your primary objective kind of centralized, and then the Booty Raid also, they felt like that was pretty good. So basically collect some tokens from anything, any of your opponent's stuff, and then come back and place them in your primary objective, which is not too bad. Alright, so the Destruction Victory Conditions, there's one new one here. We've got the Night Slayer, which is worth 5 points, and then you've got the Questing Night Slayer, the old one. The Questing Night Slayer for 3 points used to count for both Questing Knights and Relic Knights, and I think that they just came to a realization that, hey, Relic Knights are a lot harder to take down than Questing Knights, and so, yeah, they should be worth more points. I think this is going to be interesting in the future if they keep this, because this is going to change maybe the way some of the choices you make on your cadre, because maybe you like a Relic Knight a lot, but you don't necessarily want to put 5 victory points out there, especially if you don't feel comfortable protecting them, or if it's going to be a specific type of build. Because if you can't protect that Relic Knight, then you might be giving your opponent 5 easy points. I mean, 5 points is a primary objective. And so, I mean, that's as high as it used to go for anything, and now we're saying that Relic Knights are worth that, so that's kind of a big deal. And then next, of course, you've got Unit Killer, which is still 1 point, which makes sense, right? So, all right, so just some final thoughts on some of the 1.5 changes. So, games should be a lot faster. We saw a lot of reductions in just the numbers of things that you're allowed to or that you have to do to complete objectives. So overall, things should be a lot faster. Definitely read over the objectives, kind of know what's going on. Right now, there's a lot going on in Relic Knights. I mean, you have to keep track of your faction. You have to keep track of their faction. You have additional abilities that depend on which objectives you're doing. You both have 2 objectives, and you could have additional objectives if both the Void and Prismatic objective are in play. So that's a lot to keep track of. Plus your additional abilities, which again, I don't think a lot of people honestly use. Most of the changes of the objectives are good. Of course, I highlighted my one objective, which was Siege, which I feel like maybe still needs a little bit of work because it just feels really bad when it is that all you do. Even for me, even when you have Siege and you complete it, it feels bad. It's like, so I just stand here, and place some tokens on all of these things, some secure tokens, and that's now I get 3 points. I mean, that doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like I really worked for that. Then the last one is held Esper change. I really do think that this has hurt a lot of units that are out there. It's hard to really say because I haven't, honestly, I haven't played a ton of Relic Knights games. I need to play a couple of more as I will be running this tournament. And again, I do plan on putting out some tournament reports, but I have to put a lot of work in those to get those done. So I really hope that you like this. I hope that this was informative for you. And of course, if you like this, please leave a comment. Let me know if you disagree with anything or if you have any corrections to make, then please leave a comment. If there's something I missed, especially, please leave a comment because I need to know those sort of things. I believe this is all the changes from the old rules to the new rules. Obviously, this was designed for people that are fairly well versed in Relic Knights, your intermediate to pro level Relic Knights players. This is not really a video that was geared towards new players, and so I do plan on doing something like in the future, but I'm also looking at the 2.0 rules coming out, and so I'm trying to put effort into the things that are going to give the best payoff. And right now, the 1.5 rule changes I felt like was the most important thing to put out there. But do look forward to a game. There's about a battle report from me soon. I'll be basically running through a game with the 1.5 rules, and I'll be pointing out some of the changes while it is that I run through that game. So until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless your families. Try not to rage too much out there.